Erev Tov, everyone. It is Wednesday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the Maimon Beit Knesset, therefore it must be the Torah study with Rabbi Aryel and Rabbi Ancel. And without further ado, let's go ahead and bring Rabbi Ancel in. You are live, sir.
Shalom, everybody, and welcome.
Okay, so far we've got nobody in the chat room. No, we got somebody in there. They just haven't posted. Okay, so probably Donald. If it isn't Donald, it's going to be Marshall. It's going to be one of the two. Okay. So this week, last week we had the computer was down and we had to take that in and get it fixed, and we are back on this week, and we are on the Parshah Shemot this week, which comes from the Sefer Shemot, and it's the first Parshah of the Sefer. And so, are you seeing anything yet?
Unfortunately, not.
Unfortunately, not. Yeah, okay. Skype has been behaving badly on us the last couple of times. So let's try this, just for giggles. Let's see what happens here. Now, we did this last night, and it actually, for some reason, it started working. So, can you see me now?
Nope.
You can't see my...
No.
Okay, I'm just going to leave the camera on here for a minute and see what happens. It's over here. There we go. Okay. So hopefully we'll get this thing figured out eventually. So, if nothing else, I guess I'll do the reading, right?
Okay, good for enough for me.
I guess so. It's going to have to be, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay, still nobody chatting in the chat room. Let's make sure we got that onto the live chat. Yeah, we got the live chat. Let's go to top chat. Oh, there they are. Yeah, they're in there. Okay. Okay, so we have... nothing seems to be wanting to work right tonight. Okay, so... we have Marshall, we have Richard, we have Donald in the chat room so far. Again, Skype is behaving badly on us, so we'll see what we can do to marshal through. I can see what's coming up on Ancel's screen, but
The only thing I have centered out is your face and Zadie.
yeah, I can see that. So let's try the share screen again. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna do this, come back over here and click that, and see what happens. Okay, well, Joe.
Whoa, it flashed.
Well, that's
The
a good
screen
thing.
flashed.
Okay, let's just let it sit there and see what happens, shall we?
Okay.
Okay, if it just suddenly comes on, let me know.
Okay. Donald's in the room.
Yep,
Can he hear me?
I would assume you can. Everybody can.
Okay, I want to straighten out two things with Donald.
Ah,
The thing about the dome, that belongs to Israel. That's where the temple used to be. And Hashem gave that land to Israel. For some reason, Israel and Jordan made a pact for peace, so they are controlling the Temple Mount. Halachically, you're allowed, even if the two chief rabbis say no, who are they to judge? If God gave the land to Israel, it belongs to Israel. So, and you said, well, they're judges and we're not. Well, fortunately, Ariel and I, we on our ordination it says Yadin Yadin. So we are judges. We are judges in case there is a dispute. There's a case where there's a divorce, because not every rabbi is allowed. If you are a pulpit rabbi, they really are not allowed to do weddings and divorces. They're not. But it's about, all of it is about money. It's true. Because if you don't have the second ordination, you should not do weddings, or especially divorces, because they're
Yeah.
tough. And if you make a mistake and you give it to them and they cannot read or they don't understand the Hebrew writing, and if there's a mistake, basically you can ruin somebody's life because they believe they're divorced and then they go and remarry and then they find out that they were never divorced. So that causes a lot of problems.
Okay. So on the Temple Mount, essentially, what the fear is that somebody will walk across the place where the Kodesh HaKodeshim was. But we know where that is. And this is one of the rabbinic traditions of building a fence around a fence around a fence.
Correct.
So just in case somebody might accidentally walk across that place where the Kodesh HaKodeshim was, the Holy of Holies was, then they just say basically nobody can go up on the Temple Mount. However, we actually know exactly where the Kodesh HaKodeshim was located on the mount.
Ariel, but we also know the Yidolah. There was somebody who's going to do on purpose and just go across it, which will cause a problem.
Yeah.
So, but as far as we are allowed to go and visit the Temple Mount. We know where where the limitations are.
Yep.
Who wants to go inside? I don't want to go inside. But the grounds are holy grounds to Israel, to Jews. So, would the two chief rabbis say no, and God said yes? Well, I'll go along with God, and rather than the two chief rabbis. The two of them fight each other every day because they cannot decide or let go, because the Sephardic rabbi wants to be the chief rabbi and the other wants to be the chief rabbi of Israel. And none of them are. So now they're co-owners of the chief rabbi.
Yeah. Well, so shall we
Yes, sir.
shall we get on with the Parsha?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'sok b'divrei Torah.
I mean,
Okay, so we are on the Sefer Shemot.
and
This is
Parshah.
going to be Perek Aleph, Pasuk Aleph.
Yep.
Okay, chapter 1, verse 1. And these are the names of the children of Israel that were coming to Mitzrayim with Yaakov. Each man and his household came. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and Yehudah, Yissachar, Yevilan, and Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher.
Me.
Yeah. And all the persons who emerged from Yaakov's loins were 70 souls. Interesting, because when we did the last Parsha, that wasn't the number.
Correct.
The number was 69. 69 souls.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see if we can find out what happened here. Okay, so anyway, Yosef died, and all his brothers and the entire generation. Bnei Yisrael were fruitful, teemed, increased, and became very strong. Very, very much so. And the land became filled with them. A new king, notice that word, king, as opposed to Pharaoh or Paro. It doesn't call him Paro, it calls him a king. A new king arose over Mitzrayim, who did not know Yosef. He said to his people, behold, the Bnei Yisrael, are more numerous and stronger than we. Come, let us outsmart it, lest it become numerous, and may be that if a war will occur, it too may join our enemies and wage war against us and go up from the land. So, any comments?
No, continue.
Okay. Now, the land of Goshen, for those who don't know exactly where the land of Goshen is, the land of Goshen is basically the Nile River Valley. It's that
Yes.
triangular part right at the Nile where it empties into the Red Sea, and it's
Well,
pardon.
yeah, I said the Israelites chose that piece of land because it was very, very good land, and they were separate from the Egyptians because they did not mix with the Egyptians.
Yeah, and it was extremely good grazing land.
Yeah, that's what I said. It was good, fat land.
Yeah, and this comes into play later on, especially when we get into a little more about this king who arose over Mitzrayim. Okay, so let's go on. So they appointed taskmasters over it in order to afflict it with burdens. It built the cities for Paro, Pitom, and Ramesses. But as much as they would afflict it, so it would increase. And so it would spread out, and they became disgusted because of Bnei Israel. Mitzrayim enslaved the Bnei Israel with crushing harshness. Okay, I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat room too. Okay, so they embittered their lives with hard work, with mortar and with bricks, and with every labor of the field. All their labors that they performed with them were with crushing harshness. Now I'm going to make a point here, which I make every single time, and I will beat this to death while we're going through the entire Sefer of Shemot. Pay attention. Learn this stuff, because when Pesach comes, what is it? What does Hashem tell us to do on Pesach? It tells us to tell the story. It doesn't say read it out of a book. It says tell the story. So, what if it's not
The Haggadah is a story.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is, but it's formulated. And if you're just reading and droning through it, it loses its punch. If you set aside the Haggadah and you tell this story, you tell about the Exodus from your own memory, that makes a big impact on everybody that's there at your Pesach Seder, because they're thinking to themselves, this is really important. This is so important that the person who is leading the Seder knows this by heart.
Especially if they're children.
Especially if they're children. Okay, so I've got that in. You'll probably hear it at least 20 more times as we go through this. Anyway, back to the Parshah. Verse 15, the king of Mitzrayim said to the Hebrew midwives, to whom the name of the first was Shifra, and the name of the second was Puah. Shifra and Puah. Who were Shifra and Puah? I'm giving you a chance here.
Oh, you're talking to me?
Yeah, I figured I'd give you a shout out.
No, you can tell us.
Well, it says Shifra. Okay, now remember we said that there were 70 souls that came into Mitzrayim. Okay, and when we were in the last parsha, we found out that there was 69. There's a difference here of one. So who was that? Who was that last one? Well, that last one was Shifra, who was actually Yocheved, which was
Yocheved.
Pardon?
Yocheved,
which was Moshe, Aharon, and Miriam's mother.
Yep.
And she was born what they called between the walls, which meant that she was born after they had left the last fortified city in what would become Eretz Israel, and before they came to the first fortified city in Mitzrayim, or Egypt. So she was born between the walls. She was born during that period between, not Israel, not Egypt, but in between there. So that when they came into the land, there was one extra of them. There was 70 of them. Okay, Shifra, as we've seen with Yosef. Yosef had an Egyptian name, and which seemed to be fairly common. And it's actually even common in the diaspora. Having an Anglicized name and then having a Hebrew name. This would kind of be the same thing, Shifra. Now there is some dispute about who Pua is. Now Pua most rabbis think that Pua was Miriam. Miriam was fairly young at this point. She was really young at this point. And to be a midwife, so the rabbis are saying, maybe Pua is actually Aharon's wife. So, and for the life of me, I don't remember what her name is right offhand. So anyway, and there's a whole gematria about that, and we're not going to go into that. But so Shifra is Yocheved, and Pua, maybe Miriam, maybe not. Maybe Aharon's wife. We don't know. Okay. And he said, when you deliver the Hebrew woman and you see them on the birth stool, if it is a son, you are to kill him, and if it is a daughter, she shall live. But the midwives feared God, and they did not do as the king of Mitzrayim spoke to them, and they caused the boys to live. Okay. The king of Mitzrayim summoned the midwives and said to them, why have you done this thing, that you have caused the boys to live? The midwives said to Paro, because the Hebrew women are unlike the Egyptian women, for they are experts. Before the midwife comes to them, they have given birth. Drop them in the field and get back to picking, right? Uh-huh. God benefited the midwives, and the people increased and became very strong. And it was because the midwives feared God, that he made them houses. Anything showing up on Skype yet?
Nope.
Okay. We're trying. Okay. Paro commanded the entire people, saying, every son that will be born into the river shall you throw him, and every daughter shall you keep alive. Okay, now this was not for just Bnei Israel, but this was for all Bnei Israel and Mitzrayim. All Paro is saying,
Egypt, yep.
All the boys are going into the river. Okay. Chapter 2. When a man went from the house of Levi and took a daughter of Levi, the woman conceived and gave birth to a son. She saw that he was good, and she hid him for 3 months. She could not hide him any longer, so she took for him a wicker basket and smeared it with dry clay and pitch. She placed the child into it and placed it among the reeds at the bank of the river. His sister stationed herself at a distance to know what would be done with him. Paro's daughter went down to bathe by the river, and her maidens walked along the river, supposedly watching for Nile crocodiles. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her maidservant, and she took it. She opened it and saw the child, and behold, the youth was crying. She took pity on him and said, this is one of the Hebrew boys. His sister said to Paro's daughter, shall I go and summon for you a wet nurse from the Hebrew women who will nurse the boy for you? The daughter of Paro said, go. The girl went and summoned the boy's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take the boy and nurse him for me, and I will give your pay." So the woman took the boy and nursed him. And the boy grew up, and she brought him to the daughter of Pharaoh, and he was as a son to her. And she called his name Moshe.
Moses.
I was just looking at the note here. Anyway, and she said, "For I drew him from the water." It happened in those days that Moshe grew up and went out to his brethren and to observe their burdens. And he saw an Egyptian man striking a Hebrew man of his brethren. He turned this way and that and saw there was no man, so he struck down the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. He went out the next day, and behold, 2 Hebrew men were fighting. He said to the wicked one, "Why do you strike your fellow?" He replied, "Who appointed you as a dignitary, a ruler, and a judge over us? Do you propose to murder me as you murdered the Egyptian?" Moshe was frightened, and he thought, "Indeed, the matter is known." Pharaoh heard about this matter, and he sought to kill Moshe. So Moshe fled before Pharaoh and settled in the land of Midian and sat by a well. A lot of things happen by a well. You notice that?
Yeah.
I mean, all of our patriarchs, except for Abraham, Yitzhak and Yaakov and Moshe, all got their wives sitting at a well. So let that be a lesson to you single guys. If you want to find a good wife, go sit by the well. Okay, anyway. The minister of Midian had 7 daughters. 7. They came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's sheep. The shepherds came and drove them away. Moshe got up and saved them and watered their sheep. They came to Reuel, this is one of the 7 or 5. Is it 5 names?
Yeah.
5 names that Moshe Rabbeinu's father-in-law actually have. Okay, so the first one, Reuel, their father. He said, "How could you come so quickly today?" They replied, "An Egyptian man saved us from the shepherds, and he even drew water for us and watered the sheep." He said to his daughters, "Then where is he? Why did you leave the man? Summon him and let him eat bread." Moshe desired to dwell with the man, and he gave his daughter Zipporah to Moshe. She gave birth to a son. He named him Gershon, for he said, "I have been a stranger in a foreign land." During those many days, it happened that the king of Mitzrayim died, and the children of Israel groaned because of the work, and they cried out. Their outcry because of the work went up to God. God heard their mourning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Yitzhak, and with Yaakov, and saw the Bnei Israel, and God knew. Chapter 3. Moshe was shepherding the sheep of Yitro. Again, the second name, and probably the most common name that we know Moshe Rabbeinu's father-in-law as Jethro or Yitro.
Yep.
So Reuel and Yitro. Okay, same person, not 2 different men. Okay. Moshe was shepherding the sheep of Yitro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. He guided the sheep far into the wilderness, and he arrived at the mountain of God near Horeb. An angel of Hashem appeared to him in a blaze of fire from amid the bush. He saw, and behold, the bush was burning in the fire, but the bush was not consumed. Moshe thought, "I will turn aside and look at this great sight. Why will the bush not burn?" Hashem saw that he turned aside to see, and God called out from amid the bush and said, Moshe, Moshe, and he replied, Hineni, here I am. He said, do not come closer to here. Remove your shoes from your feet, for the place upon which you stand is holy ground. And he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Yitzhak, and the God of Yaakov. Moshe hid his face, for he was afraid to gaze toward God. Hashem said, I have indeed seen the affliction of my people that is in Mitzrayim, and I have heard their outcry because of its taskmasters. For I have known of its sufferings. I shall descend to rescue it from the hand of Mitzrayim and bring it to a land up from the land to a good and spacious land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, and to a place of the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Amorite, the Bezerite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite. And now, behold, the outcry of Bnei Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which Mitzrayim oppresses them. And now go, and I shall dispatch you to Paro, and you shall take my people, Bnei Israel, out of Mitzrayim. Moshe replied, pardon?
It says, when Moses approached the burning bush, it teaches us a big lesson to us Jews. Moses actually had the, say it in English, I don't say any other word, he had the balls to go forward and seek what it is. And he found Hashem. This teaches us that we should be seeking, not being afraid of God. We should seek God and the Torah and everything else. And God will respond the same way God responded to Moshe. And he saw the affliction of the people. And what did God say? I will come and rescue you, and I will show you the way to the land of Israel.
Yeah.
Seek God, and you shall receive him.
Yeah, but remember that God only responds when we act first.
Correct.
As I've said many times, prayer without actions is an empty vessel.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so we're on verse 11. Moshe replied to God, who am I that I should go to Paro, and that I should take out Bnei Israel, I should take Bnei Israel out of Mitzrayim? And he said, for I shall be with you, and this is your sign that I have sent you. When you take the people out of Mitzrayim, you will serve God on this mountain. Moshe said to God, behold, when I come to Bnei Israel and say to them, the God of your father, Moshe kind of protests this and kind of says, don't send me. I don't want to do this. He kind of, like 3 times before Hashem actually puts his foot down on it.
Yeah, you got angry at him.
Yeah. So what shall I say to them? And God, the God of your forefathers has sent me to you, and they say to me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? Hashem answered Moshe, I shall be as I shall be. And he said,
what I am.
Pardon?
I am what I am.
I am what I am. So shall you say to Bnei Israel, I shall be has sent me to you. God said further to Moshe, you shall say to Bnei Israel, Hashem, the God of your forefathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Yitzhak, the God of Yaakov, has dispatched me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my remembrance from generation to generation. Go and gather the elders of Israel and say to them, Hashem, the God of your forefathers, has appeared to me, the God of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, saying, I have surely remembered you and what is done to you in Mitzrayim. And I have said, I shall bring you up from the affliction of Mitzrayim to the land of the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Amorite, the Perizzite, the Havarite, and the Jebusite, to a land outflowing with milk and honey. And they will heed your voice, at least for a few minutes. That was my comment. You and the elders of Israel shall come to the king of Mitzrayim and say to him, Hashem, the God of the Hebrews, happened upon us, and now please let us go on a 3-day journey in the wilderness, and we shall bring offerings to Hashem our God. I know that the king of Mitzrayim will not allow you to go except through a strong hand. I shall stretch out my hand, and I shall strike Mitzrayim with all my wonders, and that I shall perform in its midst, and after that he will send you out. I shall grant this people favor in the eyes of Mitzrayim, so that it will happen when you go out, you will not go out empty-handed. Each woman shall request from her neighbor and from the one who lives in her house silver vessels, gold vessels, and garments, and you shall put them on your sons and daughters, and you shall empty out Mitzrayim. Why? Why empty out Mitzrayim? Because everything that came to Paro came through the hand of Yosef. When the righteous man comes into the land, blessing comes into the land. When the righteous man leaves the land, the blessing goes with him. Therefore, they emptied out Mitzrayim. Any comment?
Yeah, well, Moses made the Pharaoh. I mean, without Moses, he would have been.
You mean Yosef?
He would have been destroyed because he told him the dream, and the dream came through. So everything that Moses did was for the Pharaoh.
You mean Yosef?
Yeah, what Joseph, yeah, he did for the Pharaoh. So basically, when he left, it belonged to him.
Exactly, everything belonged to him because the Egyptians had sold everything to Paro, including themselves. So
Yep.
all of it came to Paro through Yosef. So when Yosef leaves, that's why Yosef said, when you leave, you have to take my body with you. Therefore, the righteous man was leaving, so they emptied out Mitzrayim. Okay, chapter 4. Moshe responded and said, but they will not believe me, and they will not heed my voice, for they will say, Hashem did not appear to you. Hashem said to him, what is in your hand? And he said, a staff. He said, cast it on the ground. And he cast it on the ground, and it became a snake. Moshe fled from it, as most people would. Hashem said to Moshe, stretch out your hand and grasp its tail. He stretched out his hand and grasped it tightly, and it became a staff in his palm. So that they shall believe that Hashem, the God of their forefathers, appeared to you, the God of Abraham, the God of Yitzhak, and the God of Yaakov. Hashem said further to him, bring your hand to your bosom. And he brought his hand to his bosom. And then he withdrew it, and behold, his hand was leprous, like snow. He said, return your hand to your bosom. And he returned his hand to his bosom. Then he removed it from his bosom, and behold, it reverted to be like flesh. It shall be that if they do not believe you and do not heed the voice of the first sign, they will believe the voice of the latter sign. And it will be that if they do not believe even these two signs and do not heed your voice, then you shall take from the water of the river and pour it on the dry land, and the water that you shall take from the river will become blood when it is on dry land. Anything on the picture yet? I see this.
Except humans 80.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to try and put the screen up one more time. What the heck? We'll see what happens. Maybe we'll get lucky. Who knows? Okay, let's see. I want to make sure we're catching up in the chat room here. Simca has joined us. Okay, Simca. Okay. Okay, so let's see. We're on chapter 4, verse 10. Moshe replied to Hashem, "Please, my Lord, I am not a man of words, not since yesterday, nor since the day before yesterday, nor since you first spoke to your servant, for I am heavy of mouth and heavy of speech." Then Hashem said to him, "Who makes a mouth for man? Who makes one dumb or deaf or sighted or blind? Is it not I, Hashem? So now go. I shall be with your mouth and teach you what you are to say." He replied,
So
Pardon?
Moses had a speech impediment. He had a lisp.
Yeah, and I'm sure when we get into the Midrash, we're going to find out about that.
Yeah. Also, Moses was deaf in 1 year.
Now that I did not know.
No, but this is partly a comic saying. They said that Moses had a lisp and he was deaf in 1 year. So when Hashem was talking to him, he talked to the wrong side, which is the deaf ear. So when God told him to make a right turn, he made a left turn and he missed all the oil.
Okay, moving right along. Study and the show. Okay. He replied, "Please, my Lord, send through whomever you will send." The wrath of Hashem burned against Moshe, and he said, Is there not Aharon your brother, the Leviim? I know that he will surely speak. Moreover, behold, he is going out to meet you, and when he sees you, he will rejoice in his heart. You shall speak to him and put the words in his mouth, and I shall be with your mouth and with his mouth, and teach you both what you are to do. He shall speak for you to the people, and it will be he will be your mouth, and you will be his leader. And this staff you shall take in your hand, with which you shall perform the signs. So Hashem has basically put his foot down and said, I don't care what your excuses are. You're going. That's it. No more conversation. Okay, verse 18. Verse Chai. So Moshe went and returned to Yether, again, another name for Yitro, Yether, his father-in-law, and said to him, let me now go back to my brethren who are in Mitzrayim and see if they are still alive. And Yitro said to Moshe, go in peace. Hashem said to Moshe in Midian, go return to Mitzrayim, for all the people who seek your life have died. Excuse me. So Moshe took his wife and sons, mounted them on the donkey, and returned to the land of Mitzrayim. And Moshe took the staff of God in his hand. Hashem said to Moshe, when you go to return to Mitzrayim, see all the wonders that I have put in your hand, and to perform them before Paro, but I shall strengthen his heart, and he will not send out the people. You shall say to Paro, so said Hashem, my firstborn son is Israel. So I say to you, send out my son that he may serve me. But you have refused to send him out. Behold, I shall kill your firstborn son. It was on the way, in the lodging, that Hashem encountered him and sought to kill him. Why did he seek to kill him?
Because he wouldn't listen to God.
Well, because he didn't circumcise his son on the 8th day. He hesitated to circumcise his son. So Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and touched it to his feet. And she said, you caused my bridegroom's bloodshed. So he released him. Then she said, A bridegroom's bloodshed was because of circumcision. Hashem said to Aharon, now go to meet Moshe to the wilderness. So he went and encountered him in the mountain of God, and he kissed him. Moshe related to Aharon all the words of Hashem, and that he had dispatched him, and all the signs that he had commanded him. Moshe and Aharon went and gathered all the elders of Bnei Israel. Aharon spoke all the words that Hashem had spoken to Moshe, and he performed the signs in the sight of the people. And the people believed, and they heard that Hashem had remembered Bnei Israel, and that he saw their affliction, and they bowed their heads and prostrated themselves. Okay, let's see. Hashem was on the way telling you what to do without dispute. Yeah, and Donald says, I forgot about that event. Yeah, it's a very small event, but it's actually pretty significant when you think about it. That's why we never delay in performing a circumcision on the 8th day. Even if the 8th day occurs on Yom Kippur
Or Shabbos,
that Brit will happen. Okay, chapter 5. Afterwards, Moshe and Aharon came and said to Paro, so said Hashem, the God of Israel, send out my people that they may celebrate for me in the wilderness. Paro replied, okay, so now we're back to Paro, not the king. Okay, who is Hashem that I should heed his voice and send out Israel? I do not know Hashem, nor will I send out Israel. So they said, the God of the Hebrews happened upon us. Let us now go for a 3-day journey in the wilderness, and we shall bring offerings to Hashem, our God, lest he strike us dead with a plague or the sword. The king of Mitzrayim said to them, Moshe and Aharon, why do you disturb the people from their work? Go to your own burdens. And Paro said, behold, the people of the land are now numerous, and then you would have them cease from their burdens. On that day, Paro ordered the taskmasters over the people and the foremen, saying, you shall no longer give straw to the people to manufacture bricks as yesterday and before yesterday. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. But the quota of bricks that they were making yesterday and before yesterday you shall impose on them. Do not reduce it, for they are lazy. Therefore, they cry out, saying, let us go and bring offerings to our God. Let the work be heavier upon the men, and let them engage in it, and let them not pay attention to false words. The taskmasters of the people and its foremen went out and spoke to the people, saying, so said Paro, I am not giving you straw. Go yourselves and take for yourselves straw from whatever you find, for nothing will be reduced from your work. So the people spread out throughout the entire land of Mitzrayim to gather gleanings of straw. The taskmasters oppressed, saying, complete your work, the daily matter each day, as when there was straw. The foremen of Bnei Israel, whom Paro's taskmasters had appointed over them, were beaten, saying, why do you not complete your requirement to make bricks as yesterday and before yesterday, even yesterday and even today? The foreman of Bnei Israel came and cried out to Paro, saying, why do you do this to your servants? Straw is not given to your servants, yet they tell us, make bricks. Behold, your servants are being beaten, and it is a sin for your people. He said, you are lazy. Lazy. Twice he said it. He's mad. Therefore you say, let us go and bring offerings to Hashem. Now go to your work. Straw will not be given you, but you must provide the quota of bricks. The foreman of Bnei Israel saw them in distress when they said, "Do not reduce your bricks, the daily matter each day." They encountered Moshe and Aharon. You know, this isn't going to be good, right? They
Uh-huh.
encountered, pardon?
I said, yes.
Yeah, they encountered Moshe and Aharon standing opposite them as they left Pharaoh's presence. They said to them, "May Hashem look upon you and judge you, for you have made our very scent abhorrent in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of his servants, to place a sword in their hands to murder us." Moshe returned to Hashem and said, "My Lord, why have you done evil to this people? Why have you sent me? From the time I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he did evil to this people. But you did not rescue your people." Hashem said to Moshe, "Now you will see what I shall do to Pharaoh, for through a strong hand will I send them out, and with a very strong hand will I drive them from his land." Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Okay. So that gets us to, well, we did pretty good, right about at our break time.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so we are going to go ahead and we're going to take our 6-minute break. And when we return, we're going to see what the little Midrash has to say about Parshah Shemot. So everyone, please stay tuned.
Okay.
Ancel, I'm going to turn you down here for a second.
Okay.
And we will be back in 6.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. show starts in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
And we are back. So let's bring Rabbi Ancel back.
Okay.
So you're back. Okay, so now,
Midrash.
we're going to get into the Midrash. And again, we're using the little Midrash says. I love this book. I bought these for my granddaughter, but I'm telling you, I use them all the time. She's not old enough to read yet, so it's okay. Okay, so let's see what the little Midrash has to say. So we start out, why did Moshe deserve to become the leader of Bnei Israel? Growing up in Mitzrayim, Moshe went out to his brothers and shared their pain. And when he saw the Jewish slave who was hit, almost slain by his Egyptian boss, he killed the Egyptian to save his brother Jew, for he loved every single Jew. Later, Moshe saw a Jew about to hit another, and he scolded the Rasha, "How dare you strike your brother?" So he saved one Jew from another, for he truly cared for every single Jew. Coming to the well in Midian. Again, remember, guys, if you want to find a good wife, go to the well. Coming to the well in Midian, Moshe noticed that Yitro's daughters were pushed by wicked shepherds right into the water. Those girls were not Jewish, but Moshe rescued them, for he truly cared for every person made by Hashem. Really? Did you leave us?
I just got interrupted.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm here.
Okay, good. Glad to have you. Okay. So let's see. Every person. Okay. And when he, pardon?
All of a sudden, the screen came on.
I kind of figured that might be the case. Okay. So now we know you have to call me and then I can share.
Okay, I'm showing both screens, and then a little bit of you on the smaller screen.
Yeah.
So if you take that off now, see the Hebrew and English writing.
Yeah. Well, Oh, you
That's
mean
okay, but
this?
you're in the midrash anyways.
Yeah.
Oh, now, okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we're done with
Now I
that.
can see it.
So I'm just going to close it. There we go. Okay. So anyway, let's get back here. Okay, so he truly cared for every person made by Hashem. When he tended Yitro's sheep, one thirsty lamb went far to seek water. Finding it, Moshe said, "Surely you must be tired." He carried it back to his flock securely, for he cared truly for every creature made by Hashem. And Hashem said, "Moshe, because you care for every creature I made and treat each one so well, I want you to be the shepherd of my people, the leader of Bnei Israel." Okay, so Hashem tests the Jewish people in Mitzrayim. You remember that Yaakov, together with his family, traveled to Mitzrayim, where Yosef was the ruler. Even after Yosef died, his brothers and their children and their grandchildren did not leave Mitzrayim. They continued to remain in Mitzrayim for many more years. Bnei Israel were in Mitzrayim altogether 210 years. They waited for Hashem's special messenger because Yosef had commanded them not to leave before Hashem would send his messenger to take them out of Mitzrayim. It was Hashem's plan that the Jews should stay in Mitzrayim for a long time. In this way, he fulfilled his words to Abraham, "Your children will be strangers in a land that is not theirs. They will become slaves and suffer there for many years." Hashem had many reasons for causing the Jews to stay in Mitzrayim for a long time. One of them was to test the Jews in a number of ways. Would they remain tzaddikim and continue to serve Hashem even though their Egyptian neighbors all served idols? And would Jewish men marry Egyptian wives and Jewish women marry Egyptian husbands, or would the Jews refuse to marry non-Jews? And would Jews speak Lashon Hara? And would the Jews speak Lashon HaKodesh, Hebrew, among themselves, and give their children Jewish names, or would they begin to take Egyptian and talk Egyptian and give their children Egyptian names? And when Hashem would later send Moshe to free them, would the Jews agree to go with him to Eretz Israel? Or would they prefer to stay in Mitzrayim because they were at home there? Hashem tested Bnei Israel in all these ways. The Jews who did not pass these tests died in Mitzrayim during the plague of darkness. Those who deserved to receive the Torah were freed from Mitzrayim. The Midrash explains the reason why Hashem exiled Bnei Israel to Mitzrayim. Our forefather Yaakov had 4 wives. 2 of them, Bilhah and Zilpah, were maidservants of the other 2, Rachel and Leah. When Yaakov married Bilhah and Zilpah, he freed them so that they would no longer be slaves. Nevertheless, the sons of Leah used to look down on Bilhah and Zilpah's sons. They would make fun of them. "You are the sons of maidservants." So Hashem said, "I will bring all of Yaakov's children to a strange land, Mitzrayim. The Egyptians will dislike the Jews and will enslave them. Then all the Jews will be equal and will be friendly to each other." That's a thought.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was so. Because the Egyptians despised all Jews, the Jews became close friends. When they left Mitzrayim, all Jews felt that they were brothers. Not one of them believed that he was better than any other Jew because he descended from Rachel or Leah rather than from Bilhah and Zilpah. How Bnei Yisrael withstood the test of the Egyptian exile. Yaakov's descendants, the Bnei Yisrael, did not do so well among the Egyptians after Yosef and his brothers died. While Yosef was alive and ruled over the land, he commanded Bnei Yisrael, remain in the district of Goshen, far apart from the Egyptians. Yosef knew that this would prevent the Jews from mixing with the Egyptians and serving idols like them. When Yosef died, his brothers continued to warn their children and grandchildren, keep away from the non-Jews or else you will learn their evil ways. But after Yosef's brothers had all passed away, the Jews had only the tribe of Levi, warning them against mixing with the Egyptians. Many Jews moved away from Goshen and settled in other parts of Mitzrayim. And they soon learned from Mitzrayim how to bow to Egypt's chief god, the sheep, and the other Egyptian animal gods. Most Jews began to worship idols like their Egyptian neighbors. Despite that, no Jewish man ever married a non-Jewish girl, and no Jewish girl ever allowed an Egyptian to marry her. The Jews did not speak the Egyptian language among themselves. They spoke only Lashon HaKodesh, Hebrew. And they did not give any of their children Egyptian names. Hashem was still not pleased with the Jews. He wanted all of them to continue to serve only him. When they chose to mix with the Egyptians and to act like Egyptians, Hashem made the Egyptians hate the Jews. He wanted the Jews to realize that they must do teshuvah, that they must stop serving Egyptian idols. The Egyptians are unhappy about the many Jewish children. Hashem had promised Abraham that his descendants will be as numerous as the stars. Hashem began to fulfill that promise by increasing Yaakov's family. There had been only 70 people in Yaakov's family when they arrived in Mitzrayim, but soon there were hundreds, then thousands, then hundreds of thousands of Jews, and then millions of Jews. How did this happen? That's kind of a foolish question, isn't it? I mean, we pretty well, never mind. Hashem performed a miracle. The Jewish mothers gave birth not only to one baby at a time. Can you imagine? To 6 babies at a time. Sextuplets. Soon there were many Jewish families with 50 or 60 children. And other families had 50 or 60 boys and just as many girls. Just picture the noise, the excitement, and the good times all the children would have had with so many brothers and sisters. Okay, I came from a family of 8. I might dispute that. Anyway. But do you think the Egyptians liked it? They didn't. Not one bit. There are too many Jewish children all over. They said more and more angrily. They looked for an opportunity to hurt and destroy those children. Paro forces the Jews to become his slaves. Paro, the Egyptian king who lived at that time, was a nasty man. He decided to be mean to the Jewish people. He decided to forget that one of the Jews, Yosef, had once saved the whole country of Mitzrayim from starving when he had collected grain to feed the Egyptians and had ruled Egypt for 80 years. Paro said to his advisors, "We must think of a plan to stop the Jews from having so many children. If their families keep growing the way they are growing now, there will be so many more Jews than Egyptians that the Jews may join our enemies and take over the whole country. Paro and his ministers devised a mean plot. They would make all the Jews slaves and work for them day and night. They would separate the fathers from their families and weaken them so much that there were soon fewer new children would be born. But how could Paro turn the Jews into slaves? He and his ministers thought of an evil trick. Okay. They made an announcement. King Paro is building a number of new storage houses for grain. He needs many, many workers to build them. He expects every good citizen to join and help. All the workers will be paid. The Egyptians said to Bnei Israel, "What are you Jews doing to help our country? You must come and also join." And so the Jews came and began to help construct new storage houses for Paro. To encourage people to join, King Paro himself showed up at the building site on the first day, shovel in hand. The word spread that even the king personally had helped with the construction work. So more and more people joined, among them all the Jewish men, except for those men of the tribe of Levi. Paro's officers approached the men of Levi and asked them, "Won't you help us build also?" But they declined firmly. They answered, "We are rabbis of the Jewish people. We have to learn and teach them. We have no time for any other work." When Paro's officers heard that, they left the men of Levi alone. At the beginning, Paro paid the Jewish workers, but after the next page, that is, after a while, he stopped paying. When the Jews complained, Paro's supervisors told them, the king commanded that every Jew must continue to build even without pay. Some Jews did not show up for work, but Paro's supervisors had everyone's name and address marked down. Any Jew missing from work was reported to Paro's policeman, and he was brought to work by force. Paro's supervisors were cruel and wicked slave drivers. They forced the Jews to work nonstop and quickly. If a Jew slowed up because he was tired, they beat him with a whip and forced him to work at full speed. Paro also appointed policemen from among the Jews, whose job it was to drive every Jew to work his hardest. The Jewish policemen were ordered to beat any Jew who was slow at his work, but they refused to hit their Jewish brothers. When the Egyptian supervisors saw the Jewish police had mercy on their fellow Jews and allowed them to show up with their work, Paro's supervisors whipped the Jewish policemen instead. When the Jewish policemen accepted the whippings rather than hit their fellow Jews. Hashem later rewarded these heroic Jewish policemen. He appointed them Zakanim, Torah leaders of the Jewish people. Paro gives the Egyptians permission to employ any Jew as a slave. Paro expected to hear that Bnei Israel were having fewer and fewer children, but to his disappointment, he was told that the number of Jewish children was growing. The Jews didn't work hard enough, said Paro. That is the problem. So Paro made a new announcement. Any Egyptian may take Jews to work for them in his home or in his fields. The Egyptians were very pleased with this new order because they could now have many slaves as they wanted to do their work. An Egyptian could come and command a Jew, "I need a field cleared of stones," or "I need a garden planted, come with me." The poor, exhausted Jew had to work for the Egyptian at night after he had finished his work for Paro. But nevertheless, Paro's hope that there would be fewer Jewish children did not come true. The Jewish families continued to grow. So Paro issued an evil order. At first, Paro's officers had given the Jews bricks for building. Now Paro commanded that the Jews make their own bricks. They had to gather the material for making bricks, except for straw, which Paro gave them. This new hardship made work much tougher for the poor Jewish slaves. But Paro's plans still failed. The Jewish families increased more and more. When Paro saw that, he thought of a new terrible plan. He would make sure that from now on all Jewish baby boys would be secretly killed. So, Paro commanded the midwives to kill the newborn Jewish baby boys secretly. Paro commanded to bring to his palace 2 Jewish women who were in charge of helping the Jewish mothers to have their babies. Their names were Shifra and Puah. Paro ordered Shifra and Puah see to it that no more Jewish boy babies are born alive. When you are called to the home of a Jewish woman to help her give birth, and you see that a boy is coming, choke him and tell the mother, "We are sorry to tell you, but your baby was born dead." Paro thought, soon there will be no more Jewish boys. Why did Paro command that only boys be killed? He could just as well have ordered that all the baby girls be killed. But his wise magicians told him, "We see in the stars, your majesty, that a little boy is about to be born who will free all the Jewish slaves and lead them out of Mitzrayim." So Paro decided to have all the Jewish boys killed, hoping that the future leader would be among them. It did not occur to King Paro that the midwives, Shifra and Puah, might dare to disobey him. After all, everyone in Egypt knew that whoever disobeyed the mighty Paro would be put to death. But Shifra and Puah decided to ignore Paro's command because they were Zadikiniot, righteous women. They said, "We are ready to be put to death rather than to kill Jewish children." Hashva Shalom. When Paro heard that no Jewish boys were born dead, he angrily called Shifra and Puah and shouted, "Why did you let the Jewish boys live?" Shifra and Puah answered, "It's not our fault, your majesty. We are never called on time. The Jewish women davened to Hashem and their children that their children should be born quickly and in peace. By the time they call us, it is always too late. All the babies are born already." Hashem rewarded Shifra and Puah greatly for their courage and in disobeying King Paro's orders. Their descendants became leaders of the Jewish people, Kohanim, Leviim, and kings. The newborn boys were thrown into the Nile River. Paro and his advisors realized that they could not kill the Jewish boys secretly, so they decided to murder the Jewish boys openly. The king proclaimed, "From now on, all newborn Jewish boys will be thrown into the Nile River." Since Paro expected the Jewish mothers to hide their babies, he ordered the Egyptians to move into the houses on the right and on the left of every Jewish home to spy on the Jews and find out when the Jewish mother was due to give birth. They would report it to the Egyptian police so that the Jewish home could be searched as soon as the baby was born. If it was a boy, the baby was taken away and drowned. The Egyptians helped Paro by spying on the Jews. They would tell their children, follow the Jewish women all over and spy on them to find out when they are having their babies. The Egyptian women also helped Paro as followers. Whenever any Jewish policeman searched a Jewish home for a newborn baby boy and could not find him, the Egyptian woman would bring her own baby to the home. She pinched her baby until it began to cry. When the Jewish baby heard another baby cry, he began to cry too. This is a way that he was discovered and summarily thrown into the Nile. The Midrash explains how Hashem saved the Jewish baby boys. Hashem performed a miracle for the Jewish people. The Jewish babies that were thrown into the Nile River did not drown. Rather, the river sent them down in caves under the fields far from the Egyptian cities. There Hashem took care of the boys. He placed 2 rocks next to each boy's mouth. When he sucked on one rock, fatted milk flowed out, and when he sucked on the other rock, honey flowed out. The children grew up nourished by Hashem and later returned to their parents' home. A different midrash explains that Hashem saved the Jewish baby boys by miraculously keeping them alive in the Nile River. Hashem made it possible for the babies to breathe in the water like fish, and he also provided them with nourishment in the river. When Paro later canceled his decree, the Jewish children came out of the river alive. So Paro's evil plan did not succeed. So, we move on. Moshe is born. One of the leaders of the Jewish people at the time was the Zadik Amram from the tribe of Levi. He was so holy that he never sinned all his life. His wife, Yocheved, was a great Zedeket too. They had a 6-year-old daughter, Miriam, and a 3-year-old son, Aharon. On the day that Yocheved was about to have another baby, Paro's astrologers and wise men said to the king, "We read in the stars that today will be born the boy who will lead the Jews out of Mitzrayim." However, Amram's and Yocheved's new little boy was never discovered by the Egyptians. Yocheved was able to hide him in their home for 3 months. When she grew afraid that the Egyptians might search her home, and so she looked for a different hiding place. Yocheved thought, "Perhaps I will hide my baby in the Nile River. Paro's astrologers will read in the stars of the boys that the boy they are worried about has already been thrown into the Nile. Then Paro might cancel his order to throw Jewish boys into the river." Moshe in the Nile. Moshe's mother took a wooden box and put a cover on it to waterproof it. She covered it with tar on the outside and clay on the inside. She put the box into the Nile River among the reeds growing at the river's edge, where it would not be noticed by people walking along the riverbank. Moshe's sister, Miriam, decided to stay near the riverbank and watch what would happen to her baby brother. Miriam faithfully waited for about 20 minutes. No one took notice of the box that was floating in the river. But who was approaching the river now? Miriam could tell that it was a noble Egyptian lady, followed by her maids. Who could she be? When she came close, Miriam realized that it was King Paro's daughter, Princess Basia, who was coming to bathe in the Nile. Can you imagine how Miriam's heart must have thumped when she saw that Basia was going down into the river not too far from the box with her little baby brother inside? Miriam walks anxiously to see whether or not Basia would discover it. She did. "I wonder what's floating among the reeds there," the princess called out. Turning to her maids, she commanded, "Get me that box." When they refused, Basia stretched out her arms to get it herself. Actually, it was impossible for Basia to reach the box because it was floating many feet out of her reach. But Basia tried anyhow, and Hashem performed a miracle. Her arm stretched until it reached the box. Basia was able to open it. She was surprised to see a baby inside the box. How beautiful the little boy looked. Basia was amazed and did not know what to do with him. Hashem sent an angel, Gabriel, to smack the little boy. Instantly, he was screaming pitifully, and Basia's mercy was aroused. "Quick, run," she told her maids. "This baby, he must be a Jewish baby, is starving. Find a nurse from whom he can drink milk." The maids returned with an Egyptian nurse, but to everyone's surprise, the little baby shut its mouth tightly and would not suckle. Messiah ordered another Egyptian woman to be brought to nurse the baby, but still he refused to drink. Do you know why? This little baby would later become Moshe Rabbeinu, a great tzaddik, who would receive the Torah from Hashem and teach it to the entire Jewish people. Even as a baby, he was so holy that he would not drink milk from a non-Jewish woman. Miriam had been watching all the time. Now she stepped forward and offered, "Shall I get you a Hebrew nurse? Perhaps the baby would drink from her." When the princess agreed, Miriam ran home and returned with her mother, Yocheved, and of course the little baby gladly drank his mother's milk. Moshe in Paro's palace. Yeah, I hope we have enough time to get through this. There's a lot in this Parsha. Yeah, we got many more pages. Yeah, okay. I don't think we're going to get through it all.
There's another Wednesday.
Pardon?
I said there's another week.
Yeah, but we'll be on another Parsha.
Sure.
We'll see. Okay. Have you just read who the little boy was? He was none other than Moshe. Actually, the name Moshe was given to him by the Princess Messiah. She named him so because the word Moshe means, I drew him out of the water. The Messiah had pulled Moshe out of the water. Messiah told Moshe's mother, "Keep the child in your home and nurse him until I come and bring him back to the palace, and I will pay you for your trouble." After 2 years, the princess picked up Moshe and brought him to Pharaoh's palace. Messiah took great care of Moshe. She loved the lovely little smart boy as if he would be her own son. Her father, Pharaoh, liked him too and often played with him. The Midrash tells us Moshe snatched Pharaoh's crown. Once little Moshe was sitting on Pharaoh's lap. Suddenly he stretched out his hand and snatched Pharaoh's crown off his head and put it on his own little head. Can you imagine the excitement in the king's court? One minister advised Pharaoh, "Your Majesty, this boy, even though he is a mere baby, already is taking away your crown. When he grows up, he will want your whole kingdom. Perhaps he is the boy about whom your magician said he will take the Jews out of Mitzrayim. So kill him now, and he will not become a dangerous enemy of yours." But a different minister argued, "Your Majesty, it is exaggerated to take a little boy's actions so seriously. All children love to play with shiny objects. He took your crown simply because he thought it was a nice, shiny toy to play with." At the end of the argument among the ministers, they decided to test little Moshe and to find out why he had grabbed Pharaoh's crown. Did he understand the importance of the crown, or had he just been playing? If a test showed that Moshe had taken Pharaoh's crown with a definite purpose in mind, he would be put to death. 2 bowls were brought to Moshe, one filled with gold coins and the other filled with glowing hot coals. Moshe would pick the gold or the glowing coals? If he would take the gold, that would show that he was smart enough to understand that the gold was more valuable than coals. If he was so smart, then that would show that he understood the value of the crown and had purposely put it on his own head. If he would pick the worthless coals because of their glow, it would prove that he was just a baby and had been attracted to the glitter of the crown. Now, little Moshe was a very smart boy. He knew that the gold was much more valuable than the coals, and he stretched out his hand toward the gold. But Hashem sent an angel, Gabriel, to push Moshe's hand into the bowl of coals. Moshe picked up a coal and, finding it too hot to hold, tried to put it in his mouth. The coal burned Moshe's tongue. From then on, it was hard for Moshe to speak. So Moshe grows up, and we have got like 2 minutes left. Okay, I think we're gonna stop there. Yeah, this is yeah, Vayera is probably just as long. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe we'll have to get the rest of that next year when we come around on it again.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm going to turn you down here for a moment, Ancel, and do the outgoing, and then I'll be back with you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank everybody for being here tonight. Sorry that we didn't get through the whole Midrash. There's just so much in this Parsha that, well, next time around. Okay, so don't forget that Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern is Kabbalat and Ma'ariv, the Shabbat service. Shabbat morning at 10 a.m. Eastern is Shakrit and Musaf. And then Monday night is Zeta's Story Corner at 8 p.m. Eastern. Tuesday night is the Rabbis Discuss at 8 p.m. Eastern, and we continue on with the Bahir. You don't want to miss that. And then, again, right back here on Wednesday for the Torah study of the Parshah of the week, Vayera, this coming up. Until the next time, everyone, I'll go take Ancel's picture down here, and hope to see you in Shul. Until then, we'll simply say, Laila Tov.